Have you ever felt like the universe was trying to tell you something? As if there was an invisible force pushing you toward a moment of deep change? Well, if this video appeared on your feed today, this force may have a name: Saint Rita of Cascia. And according to numerous faithful around the world, when her presence is felt in her life, something extraordinary is about to happen. I'm talking about real stories, documented experiences, and signs that left skeptics speechless. Stories of people who found Santa Rita's influence shortly before his whole world changes, before the impossible became possible, before miracles entered their ordinary lives and turned everything upside down. But here is what is really fascinating. They are not just random coincidences or illusions. There is a pattern here, a spiritual project that connects Santa Rita's interventions to incredible moments of transformation. And today, we will explore exactly what it means when this powerful saint crosses her way. Stay with me, because at the end of this video, you will understand why millions of people consider Santa Rita to the saint of impossible causes, why their roses bloom in winter, and more importantly, why seeing your name, your image, or feeling your presence can be the most significant thing that happens to you this year. If you believe nothing is by chance, and that this video has come to you for a reason, then subscribe now on the channel, because here we talk about faith, signs, and purposes. And he comments down here, Santa Rita, interceded by me, so that this prayer reaches even more hearts. Let me start with something that happened just 3 weeks ago in a small town outside Naples, Italy. Maria Gonzalez was fighting a bankrupt business, growing debts, and what seemed to be a number of insurmountable problems. She was literally on the verge of losing everything she had gained in the last 15 years. One Tuesday morning, while walking to what she thought was her last meeting with bankruptcy lawyers, something caught her attention. There, growing through a crack on the concrete sidewalk, was a single red rose, in the middle of winter, in a place where nothing should have grown. Maria was never particularly religious, but something in that rose made her stop. She took a picture and went to her meeting. But during this meeting, something unprecedented happened. The lawyers informed her that a mysterious benefactor had agreed to cover her debts in full, without conditions, without explanations. Just a simple ticket stating that the donation was made in honor of Saint Rita of Cascia. In 3 months, Maria's business not only recovered, but expanded beyond her bolder dreams. She now employs 12 people and has become one of the most successful entrepreneurs in her region. But here is the really amazing part. When he returned to look for that rose, weeks later, he discovered something that changed his life forever. The exact place where the rose had grown was right in front of a small sanctuary dedicated to Santa Rita, which existed there for over 100 years. A sanctuary that Mary had passed thousands of times, but somehow had never noticed that crucial moment. This is just an example of what people around the world are calling the phenomenon of Santa Rita. They are not isolated incidents. They are happening everywhere, from Sao Paulo to Chicago, from Mumbai to London. People report meetings, signs, and interventions that seem to follow the same mysterious pattern. But who exactly was Santa Rita, and why do these experiences continue to happen? Rita Lotti was born in 1381 in the small village of Roccaperena near Cascia in central Italy. From the beginning, his life has been marked by the extraordinary. The legend tells us that, as a baby, white bees were swarming around their crib, leaving honey drops on their lips without ever chopping it. But it was not an easy life. Rita was forced to a marriage arranged with a violent and unfaithful man named Paolo Mancini. For 18 years, she endured abuse, infidelity, and constant conflicts. However, instead of becoming bitter, Rita responded with something that challenged all logic: unconditional love and forgiveness. Through her patience and devotion, she gradually turned her husband's heart. Paolo eventually abandoned his violent habits and became a loving father and husband. But when his life together was finally at peace, Paolo was murdered in a fight between local families. Rita's 2 sons, consumed by anger and thoughts of revenge, planned to kill her father's killers. Rita, understanding that this cycle of violence would destroy what was left of her family, made an impossible choice. She prayed to God so that if her children could not forgive, they were taken from this world instead of committing murder and condemning their souls. Both children died of natural causes within a year, having forgiven their father's killers before their deaths. At 36, having lost her husband and 2 children, Rita tried to enter the Augustinian convent of Cascia. But the nuns refused their entrance 3 times for being a widow, not a virgin. The rules were clear and inflexible. This is where Rita's story becomes truly miraculous. One night she prayed to 3 saints asking for help: Saint John the Baptist, Saint Augustine, and Saint Nicholas of Tolentino. The next morning she was found inside the locked convent, kneeling in prayer before the altar. The doors were still locked inside. The walls were too high to climb. There was no way she entered. The nuns, recognizing divine intervention, immediately accepted it. For the next 40 years, Rita has lived a life of extraordinary devotion, prayer, and service. It has become known for its ability to mediate disputes, cure the sick, and, more notably, make the impossible possible. People traveled from all over Europe in search of their intercession by causes that seemed completely hopeless. But perhaps the most famous miracle associated with Santa Rita happened during the last 15 years of his life. After hearing a particularly moving sermon on the Passion of Christ, Rita prayed to share her suffering. Immediately, she received a wound on her forehead, as if she had been hit by a thorn of the crown of Christ. This wound remained open and bleeding for the rest of his life, but never infected and often exuded a beautiful fragrance. Even more miraculous was what happened during the harsh winter that preceded his death. Rita, now bedridden and weak, asked a cousin to bring him a rose and 2 figs in her garden. The cousin protested, saying it was winter and that nothing could be growing up. But when he arrived at Rita's childhood house, he found a single rose in full flowering and 2 fresh figs on the tree, despite snow and freezing temperatures. These roses and figs were brought to Rita, who distributed them to other nuns as a sign of God's providence and power over nature itself. When Rita died on May 22, 1457, her cell filled with an inexplicable light, and the monastery bells played alone. His body remained incorrupt for centuries, and the wound on his forehead continued to emanate that mysterious fragrance. But this is where Rita's story becomes relevant to her life today. She was canonized not only for her personal holiness, but specifically for her power to intervene in impossible situations. The Catholic Church officially recognizes it as patron saint of impossible causes, desperate situations, and seemingly hopeless circumstances. For over 500 years, people have reported miraculous interventions after praying to Santa Rita. But what makes these modern experiences so attractive is how they seem to manifest in people's lives, even when they do not actively seek their help. See the case of Jennifer Martinez of Phoenix, Arizona. Jennifer was trying to get pregnant 8 years ago. She had undergone all available fertility treatments, spent all economies on procedures, and many doctors told her that pregnant was clinically impossible. In March last year, Jennifer was driving for work when she had to stop for a funeral procession. When the funeral car passed, she noticed something unusual. The funeral was leaving the Catholic Church of Santa Rita, a church she had never noticed before, despite driving that way daily for 3 years. Curious, she decided to go to Sunday Mass the following week. During the service, the priest told the congregation about Santa Rita and his reputation for impossible causes. Jennifer had never heard of Santa Rita before, but something in her story resonated deeply. That afternoon, Jennifer lit a candle and prayed to Santa Rita for the first time. She didn't ask for a miracle. He simply asked for peace and acceptance of whatever the plan of God for his life. 3 weeks later, Jennifer found out she was pregnant. His son, Gabriel, was born healthy and strong 9 months later. But the story doesn't end there. When Jennifer was grateful to the priest in the Church of Santa Rita, he made a discovery that still creeps it. The funeral for which she had stopped that day? It was that of an elderly lady named Rita Rossi, who had been the most devoted parishioner of the church for over 60 years. Rita Rossi had spent every day of these 60 years to pray specifically by couples who fought infertility. The woman had died on May 22nd, the day of the feast of Saint Rita of Cascia. These synchronicities are not accidents. They are not coincidences. They are what spiritual directors call divine encounters, moments when heaven intersects with the earth in ways that challenge the natural explanation, but turn human lives forever. Dr. Sarah Chen, a psychiatrist at Johns Hopkins University who has been studying religious experiences for over 20 years, explains in this way: although we cannot scientifically prove divine intervention, we can document the profound psychological and physical changes that occur when people experience what they interpret as miraculous encounters. Stress reduction, the renewed sense of purpose, the improvement of health results, all that is measurable and significant. But what is particularly fascinating about meetings with Saint Rita is his timing. They almost always occur at inflection points, moments when people face impossible choices, insurmountable obstacles, or decisions that change their lives. Consider Michael Thompson's experience, a Detroit construction worker who was fired during the 2020 pandemic. With 2 young children and a mortgage, Michael was facing the mortgage execution. He had applied for hundreds of unsuccessful jobs and was considering measures desperate only to support the family. In what he imagined being his last day at the house, Michael was cleaning the basement when he found a small stabbed statue in a newspaper. It was Saint Rita, left by the old owners. Michael had never heard of her, but something led him to research his story online. In reading about her life, her losses, and her confidence in divine providence in impossible circumstances, Michael felt a connection she could not explain. That night he prayed to Saint Rita for the first time, asking not for a miracle, but for the strength to trust any plan God had for his family. The next morning, Michael received a call from a company to which he had never applied. They found their curriculum online and wanted to offer him a vacancy that paid 30% more than his previous job. The vacancy required him to move to Colorado, something that seemed impossible given their financial situation. But then, the second miracle happened. The company offered to buy its home for a value above the market and pay all change expenses. In 6 months, Michael's family was not only financially stable, but also thriving in ways they never imagined being possible. Michael now keeps that statue of Saint Rita in his office and credits her family's salvation to her intercession. These stories share common elements that are impossible to ignore. They involve people facing genuinely impossible situations. They feature unexpected meetings with the image, name, or history of Saint Rita. They include a specific moment related to your festive day or other significant dates, and result in solutions that exceed what the person originally expected or even imagined being possible. But perhaps the most important thing is that they occur with people from all spheres of life, all levels of faith, and all cultural origins. Saint Rita's interventions do not seem limited by denomination, geography, or even belief systems. Dr. Maria Fernandez, who has spent 15 years documenting miraculous allegations in the Vatican, notes that Saint Rita's cases have unique characteristics. Unlike many reported miracles, Rita's interventions often begin with common events that lead to extraordinary results. A sudden inspiration, an unexpected opportunity, transcended. This leads us to a crucial question. If you are watching this video, if Saint Rita's name has recently crossed your way, what can this mean to your life now? Traditional Catholic teaching suggests that when the saints are present, they are responding to a spiritual necessity, even if we are not consciously aware of this need. Saint Rita is believed to specifically appear in lives that are about to undergo major transformations. But transformation is not always comfortable. Rita's own life shows that sometimes the greatest miracles emerge from the deepest suffering. Its history teaches us that impossible situations often precede impossible advances. If you have been trapped, if you are facing circumstances that seem hopeless, if you have prayed for something that seems completely out of reach, Saint Rita's appearance in your life can be a sign that heaven has heard your prayers and is preparing to respond in ways you cannot imagine. But there is an important caveat here. Saint Rita's miracles rarely manifest exactly as we expect. Rita herself wanted to be a nun from childhood, but had to endure 18 years of marriage first. She wanted her children to live, but had to deliver them to save their souls. She wanted to go to the convent, but was rejected 3 times before she was miraculously accepted. The pattern suggests that Saint Rita's interventions often require us to deliver our own timeline and trust in a larger plane that we cannot see from our limited perspective. This does not mean that we become passive or stop acting. Rita herself was incredibly proactive throughout her life. She actively loved her difficult husband. She actively sought to enter the convent. She actively served the others for 40 years. But it combined this action with complete delivery to divine will. Modern neuroscience, in fact, supports this approach. Studies show that people who combine dedicated effort with acceptance of results that cannot control experience significantly lower levels of stress and achieve better results than those that depend only on effort or acceptance. So if Saint Rita has recently entered his conscience, here is what spiritual directors usually recommend. First, pay attention to the circumstances surrounding her appearance in her life. What situation is impossible you currently facing? What do you have prayed about? What area of your life seems stagnant or without hope? Second, consider that the advance you seek may not look like what you expect. Rita's roses flourished in winter, but they were still roses. The form was familiar, but the moment and the circumstances were miraculous. Third, combine active effort with active delivery. Take all the practical measures that are available to you, but keep these actions light. Be prepared for solutions that come from directions you have never considered. Many people find it useful to establish a formal relationship with Saint Rita through prayer and devotion. His most famous prayer is beautifully simple. Saint Rita, impossible lawyer, pray for us. Saint Rita, lawyer of the helpless, pray for us. Saint Rita, lawyer of the desperate causes, pray for us. Others prefer to talk to her in a conversation, sharing their fights and asking for their intercession, as they would do with a trusted friend who happens to have extraordinary connections in the sky. There is also a beautiful tradition of offering roses to Saint Rita, especially in times of great need. Many people visit her churches, light candles, and leave roses in their statue. Others keep roses at home as a reminder of their promise to make impossible things flourish in the hardest times in life. But perhaps the most powerful practice associated with Saint Rita is what many call impossible prayer. This involves identifying the only thing in your life that seems more desperate and completely trusting your intercession. Not despair, but with the confidence that she understands impossible situations better than anyone. Sister Catherine Williams, who served at the Saint Rita National Sanctuary in Philadelphia for 30 years, explains in this way: people come to Saint Rita when all other options have sold out. But what they find out is that she doesn't just solve their problems. She transforms their relationship with her own problems. She teaches them that nothing is impossible for God. This transformation of perspective can be the true miracle. When we stop seeing our challenges as evidence that God has abandoned us, and we begin to see them as opportunities for divine intervention, everything changes. Our stress decreases. Our creativity increases. We became more open to solutions that we could not see before. Recent psychological research corroborates this observation. People who keep hope in difficult circumstances are not just better emotionally. In fact, they have better cognitive performance, make better decisions, and realize opportunities than desperate blind them. But Saint Rita's influence goes beyond individual transformation. Many people report that their intercession creates waterfall effects that benefit entire families, communities, and even strangers. Remember Maria Gonzalez from the beginning of our history? After her business recovered, she created a foundation that offers interest, free loans to small business owners who face bankruptcy. She helped more than 200 families to avoid the devastation she almost experienced. Michael Thompson, the Detroit construction worker, now guides other unemployed workers and has helped dozens of people find a job through their business contacts. Jennifer Martinez, the mother she conceived after 8 years of infertility, is voluntary in a support group for couples fighting fertility problems and has become a source of hope for hundreds of other women. This pattern of repaying constantly appears in documented interventions of Saint Rita. It is as if your miracles are projected not only to solve individual problems, but to create free networks that extend far beyond the original recipient. Dr. Robert Peterson, a sociologist at the University of Notre Dame who studies religious communities, notes, Santa Rita's devotees often become extremely generous and focused on the community after experiencing what they interpret as their intervention. There is a clear correlation between Santa Rita's reported miracles and the increased donations for charity, voluntary work, and community service. This suggests that the meeting with Santa Rita may not only change its circumstances, it can change who you become as a person. As we approach the end of our exploitation today, I want to address something that many viewers are probably wondering. What if you are not a Catholic? What if you don't consider yourself particularly religious? Does Santa Rita's intercession still apply to your life? Historical records suggest that the influence of Santa Rita transcends the denominational borders. There are documented cases of Protestant Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, and even agnostics reporting experiences that attribute their intercession. Father James Morrison, a theologian who has been studying interreligious miraculous allegations 25 years ago, explains, "Grace does not seem to demand perfect theology. It requires open hearts." Saint Rita spent her life loving people hard to love, forgiving people who did not deserve forgiveness and hope when hope seemed foolish. These qualities resonate in all religious traditions. Perhaps what matters is not your specific beliefs about Santa Rita, but your willingness to remain open to possibilities beyond your current understanding. His willingness to have hope when hope seems irrational. Your willingness to love when love seems risky. These are the qualities that Santa Rita has incorporated throughout her life and seem to be the qualities that create space for miraculous interventions in our modern world. So, here is my challenge for you today. If this video appeared on your feed, if Santa Rita's name has recently crossed her way, do not discard it as a coincidence. Consider the possibility of being invited to a larger story, a story where impossible things become possible, where winter roses bloom, where desperate situations become testimonies of divine faithfulness. Book a moment right now to identify the most impossible situation of your life. What you stopped waiting because it seems very distant, the relationship that seems irreparably broken, the dream that looks too big, the healing that looks too late, the opportunity that seems too unlikely. Keep this impossible in your heart and consider offering it to Saint Rita, not with despair, but with curiosity. What would it be like if this impossible became possible? How would this change your life? How would this change the lives of the people around you? And then, pay attention. Observe unexpected opportunities. Notice unusual coincidences. Be aware of people and resources that appear in your life, apparently out of nowhere. Document these experiences. Write them down. Take pictures. Create a record of what happens next. Many people who go through Santa Rita's interventions report that the first signs are subtle: a casual encounter, an unexpected phone call, a sudden perception, one door that opens exactly when another closes. These small changes usually precede much greater transformations. But here is the crucial part. Do not passively expect miracles to happen to you. Santa Rita herself was incredibly active throughout her life. She took initiative. She made difficult choices. She served the others even in the midst of her own suffering. Your impossible situation may require you to take measures that seem scary or uncertain. You may need to have difficult conversations, make uncomfortable changes, or enter unknown territory. Santa Rita's intercession usually acts through our own courage and action, not instead of them. The difference is that you will not take these steps alone. You will be part of a spiritual network that has been operating for over 500 years. A network of people who have found that impossible things really become possible when we align with the power that created the universe itself. Your history of transformation may be next to give hope to someone who faces their own impossible situation. Your overcoming can become the miracle that inspires someone else to continue believing when everything seems hopeless. This is how Santa Rita's influence continues to spread around the world, not through institutional programs or marketing campaigns, but through ordinary people who experience extraordinary interventions and become sources of hope for others. If this message resonates with you, I want to hear your story. Leave a comment below telling me about your impossible situation or any unusual meetings you had with Santa Rita recently. Your experience can be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you know someone who is facing your own impossible circumstances, share this video with that person. Sometimes the miracle that someone needs is simply to know that miracles are still possible. Remember, Santa Rita roses flourished in winter not because the season has changed, but because she trusted the God who created the stations could transcend them when needed. Your winter may be about to produce the most beautiful flowers of your life. The question is not if miracles still happen. The question is whether you are ready to recognize one when it appears in your own life. Because if you are watching this video now, something tells me that your miracle may be closer than you think.